Hey y'all, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk you through a good build strategy and provide a template for rebuilding a late model 4L60E. And when I say late model, I'm referring to 2009 and up units. So first off, I'll cover some of the bases, including discussing the key changes for '09 and up if you're not already aware of them, and then I'll get into the part selection, build considerations, etc. So for background purposes, this transmission is going to be going back into a 2010 Chevy Colorado. It's got the 3.7 liter inline 5 4x4 unit, and it's mostly a daily driver, but it's going to see some use off-roading and a little bit of towing and hauling as well, but all within the design parameters of the vehicle and what the transmission was designed to handle. So again, we consider it stock, you can consider it mild performance, mild working, whatever, but bottom line is I have a lot of information on high performance 4L60Es, including a whole video series on build strategy, part selection, valve body and hydraulic shift calibration mods, what to do with respect to parts inside the case and all that. But I don't really have anything equivalent for just a stock daily driver or mild build, at least not for the later stuff. So I figured I would film this. I'm not going to film the entire rebuild of this transmission simply because for the most part it's going to be identical to any other 4L60E, and I already have a full rebuild series out there. So if there's something you need to know a little bit more about procedurally, you can check those videos out, and I'll link it in the description so that you don't have to go hunting for it. But anyway, let me first talk about the key changes that were made in 2009, starting with the '09 and up model years. They are pretty much a completely different transmission from a command and control perspective compared to 4L60Es produced from 1993 up through 2008. The main changes consist of the what's called the internal mode switch. I mean, that's perhaps the most significant change because that one particular part required significant changes to things like the valve body, the separator plate, and the case that made every 2009 and up 4L60E that was ever produced completely incompatible with any vehicles that took a 4L60E in prior years. Alright, so the internal mode switch's primary role is to communicate what we call range position to the powertrain control module, or PCM. So when we say range position, we're talking about what you've selected on your gear shifter inside the vehicle. So an example of a range would be park, neutral, reverse, drive, drive 3, 2, and 1 / manual low. Okay, those are all examples of range position. So when someone uses that term, that's what we're referring to. If that range position is unable to be communicated by the mode switch because either the mode switch itself has failed or there's some sort of electrical short or some other compromise between it and the PCM on the either transmission harness or the vehicle wiring harness, then you're going to have a no crank, no start condition. All your interior lights and accessories and radio and stuff like that will work, but when you go to try to start the vehicle, nothing will happen. I mean, it'll be nothing at all. And you might be tempted to think the battery's dead, but it's not the battery. Okay, especially if you have no recent history of starting or charging issues, with your systems. So the mode switch replaced two previous parts that did that same job, and those parts are known as the manual lever position sensor and the pressure switch manifold assembly. And these parts were applicable to all years 4L60E from 1995 up through 2008. In 93, 94 they had a neutral safety switch, and I think some 95s also had the neutral safety switch, but I believe they began introducing the manual lever position sensor in late 95. But I could be mistaken. I'll see if I can pin that down for sure, and if so, I'll annotate the video. If not, just know that roughly around that time frame, that's when the MLPS began to be installed onto these transmissions. Okay, I know for a fact it started with the 4L80E in that year. So 96, all 4L60s had the manual lever position sensor, and same deal. If it was not able to communicate range position to the PCM, then you would not be able to start the vehicle. Alright, let me get you a little bit closer to the bench and we'll cover some of the parts in detail. Like I said, I'm building this up for a stock to mild performance type use case. And so this will help you with some part selection and general build considerations for your project if you have one going. Now, if you're a builder, obviously this is not anything new to you. I mean, you already know all this stuff. But for those of you that are not, and or just getting into the industry or just familiarizing yourself with 4L60Es in general, this will be a good reference video for you. Okay, like with any modern transmission that's electro, hydraulic, mechanical, you always want to replace all your electrical components. So we'll start here with the mode switch. And this is how it comes. Okay, here is the part number. It's going to be 242-48867. And it's an integrated assembly. You have the mode switch itself, and it's integrated with the new rooster comb, and it already has a new roll pin in position, so all you have to do is basically install it onto the selector shaft. Okay, then what we have here is a new turbine speed sensor, input speed sensor. Okay, the part number for this is going to be 242-44544. AC Delco also has a separate part number. It's 213-4336. Okay, this goes into the back of the stator, or pump cover I should say, in this location right here. So unlike all your other electronics in these transmissions, you cannot simply drop the pan and remove this from underneath the transmission with the transmissions remaining in the vehicle. Okay, so that's why you always replace this with the OEM equivalent anytime you're going back with a unit that takes an input speed sensor or a turbine speed sensor. And do not use any aftermarket electronic parts other than Rostra. Rostra is really the only brand or manufacturer of transmission electronics that I have hardly ever had an issue with. I think I had maybe one harness that was bad out of the box in 10 years of using their products. So, and that's what we have here. We have a Rostra wiring harness. You can get an OEM harness as well. OEM or Rostra, they're both made in the United States. They'll work just fine. Either or. So here you have your mode switch connector. This is going to be for your speed sensor. This is going to be your torque converter clutch lockup solenoid and your PWM solenoid. And then these two locations here in green are going to be for your shift solenoids A and B, and this is going to be for your electronic pressure control solenoid. Okay, so we have all new solenoids installed in the valve body. There's a separate series of videos on that, and we show you how to test it, the whole test sequence on the Sonic's vac testing machine, and talk a little bit about the differences between that valve body and basically every other valve body that existed prior to 2009. So 2009 and up, the valve body completely changed. There's no longer provisions for bolting the pressure switch manifold assembly. So those pressure conduits and bowl locations just simply don't exist. Okay, there's also no 3-2 control solenoid. They eliminated that starting in 2009, and they also eliminated the 3-2 control valve and spring. So that area of the valve body is basically empty. I mean, there's like a little rounded area cast into it, but there's nothing there. It's just, a blank wall, so to speak, or a blank bore. All right, all my 4L60Es get a Sonic's line boost 4L60E. So the part number here is going to be 4L60E LB2. 4L60E LB1 will work on all early boost valve assemblies, and I think it's in either 2006 or 2007, maybe even late 2005, they transitioned to a shorter boost valve sleeve and boost valves. So you just want to be mindful of what first design or second design valve you have and buy the appropriate Sonic's part. Now, if you're purchasing the Sonic's HP1 Performance Pack, that will only come with a second design boost valve and sleeve kit. And what they do is they give you a little spacer in there that sits right on top of that boost valve and basically allows it to sit deeper into the bore so that you can use that second design valve with a first design pump. In other words, one that was set up to take a first design boost valve that has like the longer little nub at the end of it. Alright, so we always replace our servo for second gear with a Corvette second gear servo. Not a fan of the 553 servo in general. It's just, I think it's overly weak. I mean, for an inline 5 or another lighter equivalent duty like a 4.3, it's probably okay. But for any V8 application or for anything that's going to see RPMs or performance, you want at minimum a Corvette servo. All right. Fourth gear servo will be reused. We always purchase new accumulator pistons. If you have plastic accumulator pistons, which this one had a plastic 1-2 accumulator piston installed, we replace with an aluminum, and same with our 3-4 accumulator piston. You always replace these pistons, and we put a new aluminum forward accumulator piston in the valve body. All right, let me talk about clutch module. All right, so I've been getting these Alto high energy clutch modules for the same price as the factory paper style frictions. And so today is March 19th, 2024. For the last 3 months, since let's just say, start of the new year, I've been able to buy these locally here at my hard part supplier for the same price as what the factory or stock level friction modules would command. So if you had a 4L60E or a 700R4 built by me in the last 3 months or so, chances are you received this clutch module, which is, in my opinion, vastly superior to the stock level frictions. Okay, so high energy everywhere throughout the transmission. This is every single clutch pack in the unit. All right, we're also doing a steel module. So you have your 97 and up steels. The steels did not change after 97. They're all the same. And then a Borg Warner high energy standard 2/4 band. For a stock or mild performance, you really don't need anything more than that. As long as you set up the band clearance correctly, then you'll never have issues. Okay? And Dana at ProBuilt has said he's built 700R4s, 4L60Es with this same band, pushing over 7,000 RPM on a full race application and using nothing more than a Corvette servo in second gear, and just hydraulics appropriately set up for such an application, and the transmission does fine. But that said, I prefer wide 2/4 bands for anything performance. I mean, that's just me. All right, let's see what else over here. This is going to be a late model style bonded spacer plate. This is from GM, from the dealer. Okay, the part number is 24245346. So these have the gaskets bonded to the plate. Okay, they're not separate. So you always want to install a brand new separator plate. Now, if you don't want to buy the the factory OEM style plate, then you can purchase Transgo's plate for these years, and those plates don't have bonded gaskets. They sell the gaskets in that kit, but they're not bonded to the plate. You just install them like any other year 4L60E or 700R4. All right, way behind it there, that's the paper and rubber kit. So you hear me refer to a paper and rubber kit in numerous videos. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So this has all of your soft part consumables, so sealing rings, lip seals, O-rings of all descriptions, some additional gaskets, including your pan gasket, a wedge seal for the 04 and up 4L60Es, and other little parts like filters and such. So all that will come in your paper and rubber kit. Some shops, when I say shops, I mean like, transmission part suppliers will refer to that kit by itself as an overhaul kit. So if you go in and order or request an overhaul kit, they may bring you that and nothing else. If you want something like a banner kit or a cow kit, which includes all your clutches, your your band, the paper and rubber, the filter, a couple of bushings, then that's what you would request. You'd request a cow kit or a banner kit. And on eBay, when you're looking at all the kits that are available there, a lot of times they will refer to like an all-encompassing kit, including one-way clutch assemblies, as a deluxe kit. All right, they'll come with bushings, they'll come with paper, rubber, filter, clutches, steels, band. Some of them come with a shift kit, a Transgo SK4L60E or whatever unit you're working on. and that'll be like a deluxe kit. And then they have performance kits that come with like the Alto Reds or Raybestos Blues, or Stage 1 Frictions or whatever. Alright, I'm going to move on down. Okay, so these particular variants have kind of a different reverse hold down plate. It's basically a 1-2 accumulator base plate and low reverse hold down plate integrated into one. And so you bolt your 1-2 accumulator housing here. There's a little I think it's, I want to say, a Torx 27 bolt that goes here, and then you have your 3 8mm bolts that go there. And so this is organic to the 3.7 and 4.2 4L60Es, or the 4L60Es that went in behind those particular engines. All right, on the V8s, the Gen 3 and Gen 4 small blocks, you won't find this. You'll find just the accumulator housing itself, and then a reverse hold down plate that is basically this. Okay, just this section, and that's it. And you've seen that many times before in my videos. Alright, the selectors for the 09 and up are completely different than anything prior to them. I mean, you'll notice long, flat portions here. Okay, this is for mounting the mode switch. Okay, they are still they're still long on the outside, so I guess they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't shorten them up. But these are not interchangeable with earlier style selector shafts. Excuse me, something's like, I don't know, caught my throat. Alright, pump. So we always replace all our bushings, and then we always machine our pump cover and our stator. So this one was also drilled out a little bit. In a factory application, it's not necessary. In a performance application, you want to drill your drain back to 5/16. So as you'll notice here on 04 and ups, there's no O-ring grooves, so these take the wedge seal. Alright, so this has been resurfaced on an end mill, the pocket cut to the appropriate depth, and then the worm track area also resurfaced. Okay, here's our rotor. I have to go grab the slide. I forgot to put it on the bench, but if you recall, if you watched the teardown video or autopsy video on this thing, the slide was a little bit worn out, so I'm going to put a different slide in there. Okay, for the pump cover, again, same deal. You always want to rework the surface on a lathe. Alright, doesn't have any valving in it at this point. I mean, it's just basically bare, no bushings. We got bushings here. The aftermarket bushing kits will come with 2 rear stator bushings. Okay, there's going to be a wide one and a narrow one. You always want to install the wider one. The narrow one is maybe about, I don't know, 10% narrower than the wider one. And then you have your front bushing. Okay, and the front bushing is also a little bit wider, so better stability on the input shaft. And then you could put the Sonex pump body bushing in here if you want. It's like Teflon coated for performance applications. That's what I do. But this standard Teflon or otherwise smooth surface bushing is perfectly fine. No issues. All right. Sonex also makes a performance rear stator bushing. It's got a specialized reddish coating on it. Again, for high performance, I install it. For a factory application, it's not needed. Alright, new reverse input drum. I would say about 70% of the time this drum's going to be warped when you pull it out of the unit. You can do your flashlight test. You just stand it on end like this, shine a flashlight and put a straight edge and the flashlight right underneath and back of the straight edge. And if you see light coming through underneath that straight edge, you know it's warped, but just bank on having to either resurface it or just simply replace it. And for most stock to mild applications, I'll replace the drum. For high performance, I prefer to actually reuse the existing drum as long as the lugs are not worn. And that's because I want to machine it down to a smaller diameter for the wider 2/4 bands, and then I can shim them however I need to get perfect band clearance. Okay, for the rest of the unit, again, not anything wild and crazy. Always replace your one-way clutch assemblies. This is going to be the 29 element forward sprag. Okay. This one had a worn out erase, so I have a different one here. You can prep the surface of the race. I haven't done this yet, but you can prep the surface of the race by simply going through and introducing some cross hatching with 400 to 600 grit sandpaper. I found that works really well, or emery cloth, either way. Okay. We have bushings for all of our rear gear components. I never reuse bushings in these transmissions. I always replace them. The reverse input drum will have new bushings that come with it, and that's an AC Delco part, so factory OEM. For the rear sun gear, I always install a wide bushing. I used to do it for just high performance or heavy duty, but I've since been just putting them in every 700R4 4L60E I build, and that is just simply because it's a vastly superior bushing. It won't walk, especially if you put a little bit of Loctite on the outer diameter of the bushing, and more importantly, it provides more stability here for your reaction shaft, because that's where it goes. Okay. Alright, 03 and up reaction shafts. These will retro to any year 700R4 4L60E. They have the bearing. Okay, I have bearings soaking there in transmission fluid, so they're not readily visible, but you can put this to any 700R or any 4L60E up through 2002, where they did not have this style, this second design, and it'll work just fine. Okay. Standard heat-treated shell. You never use your sun shells, so the splines are heat-treated. Okay, for anything performance, it gets a Sonic Smart Shell. That is the best sun shell on the market. They range from anywhere from about $95 to $125, depending on where you find them, where you're buying it from, and maybe you see one on sale. Okay, new low roller assembly. If you don't replace your low roller, if you haven't, don't lose any sleep over it. The low rollers in these transmissions and in the later 700R4s very, very rarely fail. I think I can count 10 on my hand, and I've built over 3,000 700R4s and 4L60Es in my life, which is not a huge number, but this is over 10 years. But I have seen 10 or less come in bad, where they've broken apart or rolled over or damaged in some way. But I've always replaced them simply because they're not that expensive. I think they're $20. So, let's see, what else? You can do 5-pinion front end or rear planets if you want. For high performance, up to about 400 horse, the 4-pinion planets are perfectly fine. And other builders, here I'm talking about like, very, very well-respected, nationally renowned builders have said that they've built full-on race transmissions, 700 horsepower, 700 Rs, 4L60Es using the standard 4-pinion planets, and run them without any issue. The main thing is the condition of the planets themselves and adequate lubrication to them, and that's basically it. So if you want to run the 5-pinion front and rears, it's certainly an option for you. You're going to pay about $400 or $500 or so for a good set of OEM GM planets. Don't ever use the aftermarket. I heard horror stories with those aftermarket planets, and I had one set fail on me when I tried them several years ago. Rear planet came apart within 1,000 miles of the trans getting back on the road. It just failed. It was a mild performance type application. The guy was doing some towing, he was towing like a small boat or something, and the thing just came apart. Alright, as far as valve body mods, for anything 1995 up through say 2004, 2005, before the advent of variable valve timing, active cylinder management, and CAN bus, it is always recommended to just simply straight up convert the PWM mechanically to an on-off apply strategy in the valve body using either the Fitz-All valve, the Transgo Shift Kit valve, Sonex's valve, or whatever's available. After 2004, they introduced CAN bus, and they started to install variable valve timing, active cylinder management, and some of that kind of stuff in later years. And so Fitz-All does make a valve for that, and we're actually going to install it into this valve body. I haven't done it yet. It's still on its way, but if you watch the valve body testing video for this transmission, you'd see that the TCC regulator and isolator valves were extremely worn out, as was the actuator feed limit valve. I think the inboard and outboard TCC valve train was like 4 and 7 inches of lift respectively, and we want to see like 15 minimum. The AFL was 10 inches, and we want to see 15 there as well. So for that, we're going to install a central valve bodies, gently oversized valve, and at least we're going to start with that. Like I said, I'm filming this on a Tuesday, and these things are not due to arrive until Thursday. But when we do, I'll go ahead and film a follow-up so that we can see what impact these changes in these valves have on sealing integrity in the valve body. So look out for all those videos, and I'll link them in the description of this one so that, again, you don't have to go, fishing through the channel to try and find them. And they'll all be in the 4L60E playlist as well. Alright, forward drum-wise, not a whole lot you need to do. If you're doing anything high performance, it's recommended you install Transgo's high rate return springs. It'll give you a much crisper 3-2 downshift, and it'll prevent centrifugal apply at high RPMs when shifting through 1 and 2. And, as far as the load release springs, you can reinstall them if you want. I generally don't. Or, if you just want a lighter, I guess a lighter repulsive force in there. Again, I'm really butchering the description, but basically what I'm telling you is remove one of the springs from the little cage. There's 2 of them. Just remove one of them and install it that way with just one spring in each of the 5 little spring retainers. And that should give you what you need. It only takes about 10 psi additional or marginal line pressure to compress those springs, and an additional 10 psi beyond that for the Transgo springs. So if you run both of them and you're running something like 500-600 horsepower, 2800 stall and up, it's actually advisable to run your clutch clearance down to about 35 thousandths as measured there on the bench, and install both the high rate return springs, the little bleeder orifice that comes with the Transgo kit, and the factory load release springs, either 1 spring or 2. That'll make sure that there's absolutely no drag in that clutch. Because remember, at 35 thousandths and you have 6, maybe 7, 8, 9 frictions in there, you're probably going to have drag. But in a stock application, you can run it to between 40 and 55 thousandths with no load release springs, and you will not have drag, and it'll be perfectly fine. It'll last for years and years and years. Okay, a lot of people think that you have to install those springs no matter what, regardless of circumstance, and that's not true, at least not in my experience. So, all right. I think that will cover everything I wanted to cover with just general build strategy. Like I said, I'm not going to film this because, it would be duplicative relative to what I already have on the channel, and time's kind of the essence on this build. I was able to squeeze 4 or 5 videos out of it, which is pretty good for a single transmission, but I can't just simply put the customer off because I wanna film stuff as much as I'd like to. Unfortunately, I can't do that. So, thanks so much for watching. If there's anything that you have questions about when it comes to just building 4L60Es in general, or anything you'd like me to get into further, let me know. Oh yeah, one other thing that I'll mention, because I'm sitting right there on the bench, and I made a point to remember to talk about it, but I nearly forgot. Starting in around 2007, 2008, the 4L60Es started to see what we call Motorq fasteners for the bell housing to transmission case bolts. Okay, so this is the Kent Moore socket that you'll need, DT49037. Lisle also makes a Motorq set that's readily available. I want to say it's like $40 shipped on Amazon. I think the part number is 82400. You can purchase that. That will work just fine. Snap-on has their own equivalent socket. You can grab that as well. I believe all of them are 3/8 of an inch drive. So I have that sitting there. I have the Lisle set, and then I have the Snap-on set in my mobile tool, or the Snap-on driver in my mobile tool kit socket. Jesus, fumbling my words. All right, that should do it. As always, thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Oh yeah, you know what? I forgot. In the white boxes, you're probably wondering, what was in these white boxes? Okay, these are your new bonded pistons for your forward drum. So this is going to be your third clutch piston. This one in here is going to be your post clutch piston. These are National Seal brand pistons. These are what the factory uses. There is an aftermarket third-party supplier out there. I can't remember their name, but you can readily identify them because the rubber material is blue. It's not black as the forward piston. Okay. I don't use them in generally speaking. I prefer the National brand seal, the OEM stuff. Though I haven't heard anything derogatory about those aftermarket pistons, and my hard part supplier sells tons of them. So, you know, if you've been using them, I really wouldn't worry about it. They seem fine. But I always ask for the National Seal brand pistons for anything bonded piston or servos or whatever. Alright, I think that does it. So, sorry for the clunkiness here at the end. I just wanted to make sure I covered everything I truly wanted to cover. So, thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. Extra special thanks, I suppose. I know it's a long video, but I wanted to relay the information for those looking for a good solid build strategy and template to kind of mirror, you know, if you're new to 4L60E, specifically late model 4L60E 09 and up units. Alright, thank you again. Have a great rest of your day or evening. We'll catch you on the next one.